Hi, it's Kay from thebabybuncher.com here. I never really intended to make my channel a political channel because honestly I'm not sure I could handle the backlash. Ooh, new nappy alert. So here goes. Motherhood versus feminism. So, you say motherhood is totally compatible with feminism. Feminists celebrate motherhood. Well, I tend to disagree. And I can tell you why. Number one, before you even officially see your baby and become a mother, although you really are, abortion. Oh, we should be allowed to have abortions whenever we want, whatever time. Well, do you think that it's just a ball of cells that will, you can have an abortion now and then in 5 years when you're ready, you can have that baby? No, you can never have that baby back. Every child is totally different. All three of my children are just completely different people. Who knows if they'll even like each other as they get older because they're so different. And if I had aborted one of those children, that person would never come into the world. There would never be another Anna. There would never be another John. I mean, there are already two Franks, but there'd never be a Frankie the third. Because they're so different. And if I lost one of them, there's no getting that person back. And it's not a ball of cells. Okay, so some of my background, I actually was pro-abortion when I was younger. Up until about the age of 22, 23. Mostly because I was completely uneducated about what abortion truly means. For one thing, not just the procedure, which is horrific. Both early term and late term procedures. And let's not even get into partial birth abortion, which is basically let's murder your baby once it comes out. Let's not even get into that, because honestly I might start to cry. But even when they're very small, the thing is, it's easy with your first child to be convinced that there's nothing really there until about 20 weeks, because your baby you don't usually start to feel kicks until about 20 weeks along with your first baby. But with your subsequent children, I think many women will tell you, once you've got more than one child, that because your uterus has already been stretched so much and some of the muscles aren't as strong as they used to be, you feel the kicks so much earlier. I felt Anna, for example, kicking at about 13 weeks. So just at the end of the first trimester. And maybe even earlier. Actually, I think, no, John was 13 weeks. There he is. And Anna was 11. Yeah, that's right. So before the first trimester had even finished, I was feeling her moving around, stretching her muscles and exploring, I guess. So it's not a ball of cells. It's a person with reflexes and personal wishes and desires. And if feminists are telling me that it's fine to get an abortion at that point, then you are fundamentally against motherhood. You're against the bringing into the world of children, in my opinion. And I thank the Lord, I thank God, that in the time when I was pro-abortion, that I never actually got pregnant and had an abortion when I was with a boyfriend who would have been for it, because I don't think I could have ever lived with myself. Well, and then later on in life I met my husband, who has always been pro-life, and just hearing, well, let me tell you how I first became awakened to the pro-life movement. So I grew up in England, which is very pro-abortion. Like recently they even had abortion ads on buses. And it was just, of course you're for abortion. Don't you care about women? Do you want women to be slaves? So of course I believed in that. And then I met my husband, and it was relatively early on in our relationship, before we'd even, because we waited a while. He was a very conservative guy, and at the time I was kind of eager to get going, but what a romantic man. I'm so glad he did that. And anyway, I asked him, well, if we got pregnant, what would you do? Because my ex-boyfriend had always said what you're supposed to say, apparently. Oh, if you got pregnant, I would support you in whatever you want to do. Well, that sounds so chivalrous, but it's really not, because what you're doing is putting a horrible decision completely at my feet when we were both complicit in what led to that decision. And honestly, I never knew what to say when he would say stuff like that to me, my ex-boyfriend, because it would hurt me. But I knew that according to the feminist dogma that I was so used to, it's not supposed to hurt me, it's supposed to, that's exactly what he's supposed to say. But I hated it, and I couldn't articulate why. And then when I asked my now husband, what would we do if we got pregnant, I was assuming he would come out with the same answer. We'd been together about 2 months by then. And he told me, well, of course I'd marry you. And I said, well, okay. I mean, this sounded like it was something that someone would say 200 years ago. I couldn't believe it. And then I asked him, well, what if I don't want to marry you? What if I don't even really want to have the baby? He said, well, if you don't want to have it, then, you know, I would ask you to continue the pregnancy and then I would raise the child by myself. And the selflessness that he expressed through that was the first jolt to my system that, you know, maybe people who don't go along with abortion and don't think it's right are not from the dark ages. They don't want women to be slaves. They just care about children. They love children. And, you know, they love humanity because the children are just, you know, they're adults that aren't quite cooked yet, you know. And the idea of killing a fellow man because... Oh my gosh, this video is turning out to be really long. It's going to have to be a two-parter. Sorry, that's my baby playing with paper. The idea of killing another human being because they're a little bit inconvenient to your life, it just seems so absurd. But that's what we're talking about. And now that I have had babies, 3 babies to be precise, one of which is messing up this video, the idea, even during my first pregnancy, especially the first time I felt a kick, I felt incredibly emotional. But mostly because I was thinking, oh my gosh, there was a point in my life where I might have had this baby discarded. Not even discarded, killed and vacuumed out of me. Have you ever talked to someone who was vehemently pro-abortion? It's always a woman, or most of the time it's a woman, and you dig deep enough and you'll find she's had one. And I totally understand where she's coming from, that, like, if I'd had an abortion, I would have to continue to be pro-abortion. Because if I changed my mind and said, no, actually, abortion's wrong, then that means I have to acknowledge the fact that I killed my child. Or I contracted someone to kill my child. I mean, one time, I always considered my parents kind of, I assumed they'd be pro-choice. I hate that term. Pro-abortion, let's be honest. I just assumed they would be because I hadn't really ever met anyone who was pro-life. Or at least I thought. This was a while before I met my husband. And I remember her saying to me, because I said, well, I want to go to university. What if I got pregnant and I couldn't go to university? And she said, Kay, you can always go back years later and get that degree, but you can never get that baby back. That was my first response to feminism, so that's part 1.